Hello everybody and welcome back to Punting Pioneer. I'm Corbin Hosler with cool stuff as always, and this is Pioneer Winota. Winota Evolution. Now, longtime viewers of Mighty Modern across the internet will know that I have a pretty simple rule when it comes to deck building. If I see a cool deck with the card Eldritch Evolution in it, I'm going to play it, and that's what we're doing today. So, Eldritch Evolution, 3 mana as an additional cost, sack a creature, then you get a creature card with X or less, put it directly into play from your library, where X is the sacrifice creature's cost +2. So what that means is we have 8 copies of Winota in our deck. And Winota, of course, tearing up Standard, tearing up Historic. Whenever non-human creature you control attacks, look at the top 6. You put a human into play tapped and attacking, and just because, it gains indestructible until end of turn. So this deck is pretty crazy. You have to mix humans and non-humans. So you want to attack with non-humans and then have expensive human payoffs. And as it turns out, there's this card called Angrath's Marauders that just doubles all the damage you deal, and it's a human that you can put into play off of Winota. So that's how the deck works. You want cheap non-humans, expensive payoff cards that are humans. So let's get through the deck here. Elvish Mystic, Llanowar Elves, Gilded Goose. We're going all out on the 1-drops here. 10 1-drop mana acceleration creatures. Then some truly fun cards here at the 2-drop spot. Elvish Visionary. I don't know that I have played this card outside of a dedicated Elves deck in a decade, but it's neat to play it here. Voice of Resurgence. This is an old favorite of mine. Love this card. And Selfless Spirit to actually protect our team, because giving your Winota indestructible, while Winota gives your other creatures indestructible, can be pretty good. Whoa, sorry. Got attacked by a bug there. All right. Woo. As you can tell, you get a little jumpy when you're deep into quarantine. You know, look, you see my hair is kind of got a little bit crazy. I thought to myself, you know, I could fix it, but I just haven't got a haircut in 3 months, so this is just the reality. So, as I say, from my quarantine to yours, this is real life, and we're playing some Magic. So, all right, back to the deck. We've got some more non-human creature makers here. Goblin Rabblemaster, Legion Warboss, the duo that gives you the goblins every combat. Then we got Haktos and Angrath's Marauders as our payoff. So this is going to be a fun deck, everybody. I am excited for this. We're going deep, trying to get these Angrath's Marauders into play. It's going to be fun. Sideboard, fairly straightforward. Hushbringers for inverter decks, I imagine. Rest in Peace, Scavenging Ooze for the graveyard deck. Stamping Sphere for Lotus Field, Bonecrushers where you need them, and Knight of Autumn. We can go aggressively fair here in the sideboard if we want to. Everybody, that is Winota Evolution. I'm Corbin Hosler. This is Punting Pioneer. Let's jump into the games. All right, here we go. Trying to get somewhere with Winota. Our opponent leading on a Fabled Passage. No companions over there. We don't know what's up. Now, obviously, when you play a deck with 10 mana dorks, you want to have a mana dork on turn 1. I think that's pretty much a given, especially being on the draw here. That said, I did go ahead and keep this hand. I mean, we have a 2-drop that draws us a card. We've got a trio of good 3-drops, frankly, that can very, very easily win the game all on their own. No Winota involved, but just in case, we also have Winota. So this is a slow hand, but I don't think there's really any way to mulligan it. And now, against a blue-white player, giving us a window to resolve a spell, Voice of Resurgence is a pretty good one. I will read this card to you, friends, as they're just going to opt here. Whenever an opponent casts a spell during your turn, or when Voice of Resurgence dies, get a white elemental, green and white elemental, with this creature's power toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control. So, Voice of Resurgence is just tailor-made to beat blue-white control decks. It gives you a body to stick around to attack planeswalkers after they wrath, and it also punishes them for countering your spells. It's truly an incredible card ever since it was printed back in Dragon's Maze. I'm a big fan, and we're just going to immediately do what we do here, and we're going to play this Goblin Rabblemaster and see what happens. I have no idea what my opponent's up to, obviously, but trust me, this is an extraordinarily problematic card for them here. And this, you see it here, dissolving my Goblin Rabblemaster. I mean, sure, you even get a scry, it's value, right? But I get a 2/2 out of the deal that grows larger every time we put a creature into play. So the beatdown begins. frankly, we might not even ever play this Winota. And I think we could be in a good spot in this game. We even have another Voice of Resurgence if my opponent does get around to wrathing the board. If I think they're going to need cards. I mean, you know what? Seal Away is actually a pretty good answer here. That's actually really important for them. That's one of the few cards that can really cleanly answer a Voice of Resurgence out of a deck like that. So good for them. Now we have to figure out what we want to do, though. They're representing counter magic still. I think I can just play this turn fairly. Honestly, I think I'm just going to play this Elvish Visionary out here and see what happens. You know what? Sure, let's go ahead and I guess if this resolves, I'm going to want it in play before combat, so why not? Let's go for the other Voice of Resurgence. Now, if they counter this, they then get to untap. Well, just kidding, I guess. They didn't have a counter spell. I was going to say, they were actually in an okay spot there if they had counterspelled it and then untapped it to Teferi or something like that. But with that voice resolving, I'm feeling pretty good about where we're at. And that's a Teferi, just maybe not the right one. I mean, not that Teferi Time Raveler is ever bad. You get to bounce my token here. That's value, but I don't know if that was a really productive use of your turn. 3 mana to do that, and now I should get to finish off the Teferi. And play, at least try a Winota if I want. I actually want to kill this Teferi, so I don't think it's the turn to Winota quite yet. Let's go ahead and play the Warboss. I believe this is slightly worse than Rabblemaster, so we'll go ahead and play it here, assuming that my opponent has, probably some sort of Wrath coming along somewhere here. All right, this gets us a token. We will send this at Teferi, send this at Teferi, send this at my opponent. That way, we want to make sure to take down Teferi so there's no instant speed Wraths on our turn. Next turn, I think that would probably be the most concerning thing. So I'm going to send 2 of my creatures at Teferi. A little bit of overkill, but guarantees it off the board. Now, like I said, we're in a position where our opponent absolutely has to have a board wipe, or they're just dead. And even if they do, we get a reload immediately with a Rabblemaster and a Winota in hand. So they're just going to cycle here. I mean, this is pretty close to it for them. I guess we attack for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 next turn. I mean, that's not lethal. I am going to run headlong. Ooh, never mind. What a draw. Okay. I was going to say, I'm going to run headlong into Settle the Wreckage here. I wonder if there's a way not to do that. Maybe I leave my voice back. The thing is, even if they settle my combat, I still get the voice token, and then I get to play something. I mean, I could also just go for the Winota, and then if I get to move to combat, it's just probably lethal. And maybe that's just the play. Kind of put the screws to my opponent here, force him to have a counterspell, in which case they take a bunch of damage, we don't have to worry about settle. Or it resolves, and we don't... I mean, I guess settle still kind of gets us in that case, but we'll see what they do here. I mean, this at the very least, I don't have to think about, do I want to attack with everything? Do I want to hold something back? As it turns out, it's just going to be a scoop, so there's that upside as well. Nice game. All right, blue-white. I don't really know. I mean, I guess the Knight of Autumn, so our opponent showed us some enchantments. I unfortunately do have to cut a few Eldritch Evolutions. We're going to need to play this match, honestly, somewhat fairly, I believe, because with counterspells in our opponent's deck, the additional cost on Eldritch Evolution, sacrificing a creature, that doesn't feel great. That's not exactly where you want to be. So we'll see if these sideboard games go any better. I mean, I do have to imagine we're going to have to ship this one, but I imagine our opponent improves in this matchup quite a bit more than we do, so I think we are going to be facing a little bit of an uphill battle here over in this one. Let's see what we can do here, though. Unfortunately, this Sunpetal Grove is going to come into play tapped, which is pretty painful on a double Llanowar Elf hand. I guess... Man, yeah, now it's really hurting. I guess there's nothing to it but to just play the Sacred Foundry tap. Next turn we can play the Sunpetal Grove and a Llanowar Elves, and then we still have a turn 4 Winota. It just doesn't really do anything yet. Maybe my opponent will fight over this Llanowar Elves. That'd be nice. I'm not unhappy with our draws, by the way. You know, Legion Warboss and Goblin Rabblemaster, they're exactly what you want in the blue-white matchup. So I'm not sad at all to have those cards be my draw steps here. And now the counter spells are... They are up. They are live. Fair enough. All right, so that said, I mean, you got to pay them off sometimes, right? Let's show them a Legion Warboss. Dissolve it is. You got to work your way through them, right? Let's go ahead and play the second elf here. If my opponent were to try to do something, this opens the door for Winota with 2 triggers. If they just pass the turn back, things are a little harder. But look at that, getting into the trials. This is great. This is a window, a door, I suppose, more accurately. Opening wide for us. We'll see if we can get through it here. Now, the beauty of Winota is we don't actually need this Llanowar Elves to do any damage to trigger, which is good because it won't do any damage. All right, so the thing is, we're not exactly going to kill our opponent. I think I send him a Gideon. I kind of feel like I'm going to need to kill Gideon before this game is over, as, you know, that's how Gideon works. Let's see what happens with our Winota triggers, though. All right, Angrath Marauders. That means we can deal 2 damage thus far. Oh, I see. I can attack them or the Planeswalker? Nice. All right, I'll go with them with that one. That's 8 damage, and obviously then we'll miss on the second one. So fair, somewhat punished, I guess, but we'll see. It's hard to pass up 8 damage to their face, right? Especially when we've got, you know, Goblin Rabblemaster in hand now. There's the Supremo Verdicto. Yeah, I can't ever kick that. A friend of my playgroup calls it that, and that just always comes to mind. But all right, so Gideon's going to beat down here. Coming in for 4. Now, the good news for us is the Rabblemaster with our opponent tapped out guarantees we at least get in another point of damage here at the Gideon. Wow, okay, the natural draw, Angrath Marauders. I suppose just gonna... It'd be like that sometimes, right? All right, let's attack the Gideon. Who knows? Maybe my opponent's going to tap, kill our Rabblemaster and tokens, and then we're just going to lose to this Gideon hitting us because I wanted to do 8 damage to their face. It's certainly possible. That's a thing that might happen. I don't know that what I did was wrong, though, but 7-drop in hand, I guess, at least means lands aren't dead draws, but, you know, make no mistake, we're a little bit behind here. Our opponent has a bunch of cards in hand. We whiffed on that second Winota trigger. We weren't able to get their Gideon off the battlefield, and it seems to be dominating the battlefield right now. That said, adding the Teferi here is, and bouncing our token, unless they have an Azorius Charm in hand, that's, you know, frankly, pretty medium, honestly, because we can make another token and pick off the Teferi. Let's see if this goes through. I mean, my opponent doesn't really want to be using an Azorius Charm on my Goblin token now. They might have thought about it there. Maybe still thinking about it, as a matter of fact, and they're going to pay costs. Wow, okay, look at that. Azorius Charm onto our Goblin... Oh, where am I? I'm in blockers. Onto our Goblin token, huh? Sure thing, friend. Well, I mean, now I'll just play another one this Llanowar Elf. Now, if my opponent doesn't tap into an actual board wipe, well, then we're probably in trouble here. It is possible, you know, if that Azorius Charm they decide doesn't matter, they just want to use it to buy that turn so they can cast an instant speed Wrath. I mean, that's certainly a plan, but that said, I'm going to untap here with, they're definitely, why would they make this play? I'm not going to block, but that means they're going to Wrath. That has to mean that they're going to Wrath at instant speed on my turn. Alright, well, let's move to combat. Winota not the best draw there. I mean, I will play it post-combat, even though it doesn't really do anything right now. All right, let's send in the team here. Send in the dorks and see what happens. Instant speed supreme verdict. I can't even be that upset if that's the case. I mean, my opponent used that Azorius Charm, and now the instant speed supreme verdict. They went 2 for 2 with us on cards. And now we get to play, I mean, I don't know if this will do anything, but it is a relevant threat. It's a 4/4. Our opponent can't bounce it. If their hand doesn't have an answer to it, I suppose they could always make a Castle Ardenvale token, but I mean, I guess that would be best case scenario for us. Fact of the matter is, maybe I should have killed the Gideon now. Hasn't really done that much to us, but it would certainly be a little bit more straightforward of a game if it wasn't in play. Yep. Well, Winota acts as a fog in this case. It means that that Gideon can't come in at us. But yeah, we really need to hit on this draw step here. Knight of Autumn doesn't really do it. Can make it a 4/3 though. I guess that's the plan. We just need the body. Not often you go for the 4/3 mode. But sure, let's do it. The other thing, though, is this actually... Yeah, it's just a 4/3. It's just another creature, but it forces action from our opponent, and Castle Ardenvale doesn't actually answer it. You know, Castle Ardenvale will keep their creatures alive, but this is a Dryad Knight. The Knight of Autumn, it is not a human. That means we have a Winota trigger coming up here. If our opponent doesn't have an answer, it doesn't matter if they prevent damage from it or not. So, let's see what we can do here now. Preventing damage by Winota probably means no Wrath. If they're forced to just use Teferi to bounce the Knight of Autumn, now that's great for us. It's still positive for my opponent. They got to draw a card, they tempo us out, but that's pretty much the best we could hope for in that situation. Really like to draw a Rabblemaster or Legion Warboss like that. Alright, well, if my opponent's been sandbagging a counterspell, they're going to get us here. But on the other hand, I don't hate Knight of Autumn being back in my hand. They've shown us Seal Away. They could have stuff like that. It is a dissolve here. And maybe I'm supposed to run the Knight of Autumn out there. Eat the counterspell. Then, I guess if it's not countered, then I have more attackers the next turn. And if it is countered, then I still have the Warboss, which is, you know, in the end still allows me to get a trigger next turn. I think it might have actually been a slightly better line there. I mean, obviously, Warboss resolving is higher upside, and our opponent has shown us enchantments. So Knight of Autumn in hand is relevant in a couple different ways here, but I do feel like the longer this game goes, the further we fall behind. Every turn my opponent finds a little window to activate Castle Ardenvale or gets to uptick their Gideon like that. Yeah, it's all problematic in the end, so it allows, you know, also this Gideon is allowing my opponent to control the board. In Game 3, I will be killing Gideon given the opportunity. Let's just say that. Alright, well, nothing better to do. Let's play another night. It is, I mean, it's resolved. It is still a threat to get a trigger next turn. And now, by the way, with that land draw there, we're actually back to a spot where a land is good for us. A land means we can cast, unless it's, I suppose, an Inspired Vantage. A land means we can cast Inspired Angrath Marauders. And it's a human, sure, but it does damage, right? It's a 4/4. That's kind of where we're at in this game. Also, by the way, my opponent plussing Gideon on Knight of Autumn. That tells me they don't have an answer. That is what I'm hearing right there. All right, let's send them both at the Gideon. Wow, we're getting our trigger off now. Obviously, we whiff. That's the way it goes sometimes. This deck is really, truly, it's kind of built a little like a combo deck where, yeah, you have, you know, value. You have cheap non-creatures and it... Oh, no, that's our Winota. Uh-oh. I was going to say, there's not that many hits on the expensive end is the thing. It's you kind of assume that you get a couple triggers and you only really need one good attack step, hit that Angrath Marauders, and you get there. What does that mean? Our opponent used Seal Away on the Knight? They're going to leave us Winota? No. Surely not. Oh, wow. Nice play. Blessed Alliance make us sack it. All right, Llanowar Elves get out there. They're down to 2 cards in hand. All we have is a little Llanowar Elves. This has been an interesting game, that's for sure. Knight of Autumn would be pretty solid right here, off the top of our deck. Turning Gideon back into a creature, though. Problematic. I'd much rather my opponent be a 24 life. Lesson learned, I'll tell you. At the time, it kind of made sense. Now I'm wishing this wasn't in play. All right, well, we get to play something here. It's a Knight of Autumn. I'm in. Destroy this artifact or enchantment, please. Get this one back. Make it a 4/3, please. There we go. Now we might be getting somewhere. Let's see. Our opponent makes another Castle Ardenvale token. We untap, play Angrath's Marauders, and I guess we swing at the Gideon. Now the problem for us, I guess, might be that it might actually be these silly Castle Ardenvale human tokens here. I mean, that kind of makes sense. The game's gone on a billion turns, and the fact that my opponent is spitting out blockers and I guess creatures that could just swarm in for the win, like this, I suppose, is pretty good. Now, I think my only line here, this is still not very good. Interesting that my opponent did not turn Gideon into a 4/4. They're going to Wrath? Another Angrath Marauders, okay. Well, we'll play the cards in our hand and see what happens here. If this gets counterspelled, I think we're pretty much dead. If it does not, we get to hit Gideon for 4. You know, well, I say that, we get a suicided Knight of Autumn, but I don't know that I have a better option. I kind of need to just take my opponent's mana away from them, if nothing else. If they go too wide with the humans, we have no chance. We'll just get swarmed to death. And we have another Angrath Marauders next turn. That does, in fact, quadruple the damage. That's damage multiplying effects of magic are actually multiplicative. Did I say that correctly? The point is, 1 times 2 becomes 2. 2 times 2 becomes 4. It's not 1 + 1 and then 2 + 1. It gets silly. So yes, we can do double damage in this deck. We can do quadruple damage. We can do 8 times damage. It gets pretty silly. I also, by the way, am pretty confident here that we might be dead. We might be a little bit dead. Oh, that was on our end step. Yeah, we're really dead. All right, on to the sideboard. I feel good about those Knight of Autumns, though. That's for sure. I can't believe we lost to a Castle Ardenvale there. Now we get to be on the play, though. We get to be on the play. I think we have good cards in our deck against them still. We should have a good match here. We should have a good one. I feel pretty confident with where we're at. Now, like I said, there's not that many hits for Winota, but you do get to look at the top 6. So if you think about it, that's 10% of your deck. So if 10% of your deck is creatures, that's not really how that you can hit. Is that how that would work? You look at 10% and you want 10%? I don't know. The point is there's not very many. Let's hope we hit them. I'm not Frank Carson. I can't do the maths. I like this hand, though. This hand is great against the blue-white deck. Turn 1 Elvish Mystic. Turn 2 Rabblemaster. Beatdown. What year is it? I'm in. Our mana base working out perfectly. Opponent kept their 7. I think they've actually mulliganed the last couple games, so they might have a good one over there as well, but Rabblemaster can really take over a game and never even have to attack and expose itself to Seal Away. And that island will not be countering this. And look at that, I don't even have to shock myself. I can also turn one of these tokens into a Voice of Resurgence, that seems like a... Well, I suppose it depends what my opponent does, because I could also just turn the Rabblemaster into a Winota and win the game. Or, attempt to anyways. That feels like it might be a little greedy, though, so I think I kind of like where we're at here. I'm just going to move to combat and see what happens. Draw all of our basics. Pretty Nyx lands. Yeah, I think I'm just supposed to do this. I think this is the line. I'm going to try to Eldritch Evolution away a token. And that way, especially doing it post-combat here, we really don't lose out on much of anything. It's just, realistically, it's a 1-for-1 if our opponent has a counterspell here. And if they don't, like this, I could also take a a Selfless Spirit. That seems pretty good, too. Is it better than Voice? Voice gets sealed away, Selfless Spirit does not. I guess I'll get a Selfless Spirit. That also means that next turn I can more confidently just slam the second Rabblemaster onto the table and just... That's our plan, and if our opponent finds a way to dig out from double Rabblemaster plus Selfless Spirit, more power to them, but that's a lot to ask. Even if they had Seal Away, I'm just not going to expose more than one Rabblemaster at a time to Seal Away. I'm going to force them to have Supreme Verdicts that run right into our Selfless Spirit. We might have successfully gotten underneath the blue-white deck here. I mean, turn 2 Rabblemasters, hard to beat, especially the Rabblemasters for days around here. Okay. Well, let's move to combat. I think I hold the Rabblemaster back. I don't want my opponent to be able to... Whoa. Oh, it has to attack. Okay, that's fine. This is interesting. Other goblin creatures you control attack each turn if able. That means this Rabblemaster forces this Rabblemaster to attack, and next turn it will force them all to attack. We'll have to run right into that. Settle the wreckage. I always keep wanting to shatter the sky, settle the wreckage, but I guess that is what it is. I mean, we are hitting them for a big chunk of damage here, and we have a third Rabblemaster in our hand. All right, let's see what the play is. Cycle the Azorius Charm. My opponent deducing there that Azorius Charm to put the Rabblemaster on top of our library was not going to be good enough to get it done, and I'm real interested to see now if they have an answer to this. It is they haven't shown a Settle the Wreckage. I've been just talking about that because that's basically what they're going to need here. So I will be holding back the Selfless Spirit and the Elvish Mystic. Well, all right, here's a lethal attack, friend. Do you have an answer? Is it the Settle? Wow, it is. Good for them. Good for them. And we only have one other basic left. Wow. Nice play. I don't even think I was wrong, by the way. I still think our lines were absolutely correct. And now, I mean, this is still not over for our opponent here, right? We get to play a Haktos. We still have a Selfless Spirit that has protection from each converted mana cost other than 4, if I read that correctly. Other than 4. So what 4 drops do they have? You can't hit this with a Gideon. You can't hit this with a Teferi. You can't hit this with an Azorius Charm. What's your answer to Haktos the Unscarred and Haktos number 2 making an appearance in our hand here? I'm going to send in lethal and make our opponent have another Settle. They're going to Azorius Charm the Elvish Mystic to survive. That puts them to 1. Oh, okay, Blessed Alliance, make a sack a creature. Yep, we saw this line last game. Frankly, this was a very good line for them. That's what they needed to do to have a chance. Now, unfortunately for them, we very skillfully drew another Haktos and rolled 4 again, meaning they're going to need basically kind of the same sort of line there. Now, the Azorius Charm, putting the Elvish the Llanowar Elves, whatever, Elvish Mystic on top of our deck. That is pretty good for them. I mean, it's sort of essentially a time walk. We're guaranteed to draw a pretty bad card next turn. So in that sense, it kind of trades 1 for 1. It basically acts sort of as a removal spell. But now they're going to need an answer to Haktos. Teferi is not it. Teferi can bounce the Selfless Spirit. It cannot kill the Haktos. And unfortunately for our opponent, this Rabblemaster in my hand is going to provide that critical 7th point of damage to try to win the game. Let's see what happens. Let's see. Oh, we did it! All right. That was quite the match. As you can see, I said it was going to be an uphill battle in those sideboard games, and well, it sure was. But in the end, triple Rabblemaster hand and Haktos the Unscarred taking it down. That was a really great match here. Winota got some cool things going on. Let's see if we can win some more. That was a fun match. All right, time for more Winota, and this is quite the hand here. It really is kind of a double mulligan. I mean, I say that we have access to 4 mana in our opening hand. It's really not inconceivable. We could cast this at some point, but I don't think you could ever mulligan a turn 2 Goblin Rabblemaster. So let's see what our opponent has to say about this, because this takes over a game so quickly. It sends 1 in on the turn it's played. The next turn it comes in for, I believe, 2 tokens, plus the Rabblemaster is a 4/4. Well, a 4/2. It's a lot of damage very quickly, and then I think that probably leads to a turn 4 kill if you can really add anything else in there. So let's see what we can do. All right, so my opponent saw me in chat, said, "Is this the real Corbin Hosler? I love Brainstorm Brewery." For those who don't know, Brainstorm Brewery is my podcast that I've been doing for 8 years with Jason Alt, a very long-tenured EDH writer here on Cool Stuff, as well as Douglas Johnson. We've been doing that, so my opponent... it's always neat when you run into people online who... you get a little bit of... The one time the Magic Online chat window is not used for toxicity, it's used for actual human interaction. It's a little refreshing, right? It's not refreshing, I imagine, for my opponent is the turn 2 Rabblemaster while they're sitting on a basic plains. But let's begin the beatdown. See what we can do here. Drawing the Warboss. Pretty sick, by the way. Obviously, next turn we get to play our Temple Garden, play the Warboss, get in there with the Warboss token, the Rabblemaster token, the Llanowar Elves. Welcome to Pioneer. It's pretty quick. Now, I have to say, you think this is silly. I actually... honestly, truly died to Winota in Historic on Arena before it was suspended from that format. Turn 1, Arboreal Grazer. Turn 2, Hanged Executioner. It's a 3-mana white card that makes 2... It's a spirit and it makes a spirit token. Turn 3, land, Neoform the Hanged Executioner into Winota. Attack with the token... the Arboreal Grazer, double Winota trigger, hit double Angrath Marauders, do me like 40 damage and kill me. That turn 3. I even had like a Diligent Excavator, because I'm a Dirty Kethis combo player, but I think I even had a Diligent Excavator in play. It just didn't matter, not a chance. Pretty sweet story, now that it's restricted or whatever, they suspended in that format, because if that happened to you all the time, it would get very old very quickly. But as a one-time story, I'm in. That's kind of cool. Speaking of, our opponent has graduated to a Glacial Fortress here, but this is real ugly for them, as we're coming in here for 9 damage, put them to 10 on turn 3. Oh, they got an answer. Rattle Chains. Okay, so our opponent probably on some kind of spirit deck over there, but. Here we are coming out just a little too fast for them, but, you know, that will trade with the Rabblemaster. We only hit him for 4. And I mean, you know, frankly, now I just probably let my Legion Warboss do the talking. Don't even attack with it. Don't run it into another potential Rattle Chains. Just start making tokens and sending them in and seeing what happens here. We play our Gilded Goose. That puts us at a virtual 5 mana for the Angrath Marauders. I mean, building towards that is also... a somewhat realistic plan. As is just drawing Elvish Visionary, by the way. Always happy with that. Great. All right, we hit our land. So there you go. I'm actually pretty okay with this entire chain of developments, frankly. Let's see what our opponent's spell here is at the beginning of our combat. It's a Nebelgast Herald to tap down our Warboss. That is, that's not very good for them. Now we get to swing in with everything. Now, the thing that is good for them, it's or whenever another spirit enters the battlefield under your control. So, if they just take this hit, which they can do, it's 5 damage, they go to 8. Now, they can start to try to actually get back in... Oh, crud, I forgot to cast my Goose. That's fine. Can't play the Angrath Marauders next turn anyways, no matter what we do. Or maybe we could have. Odd second count. It's alright. I got a little too excited. Now, our opponent is still just miles behind, and we weren't going to do it anyways. There you go. But let's move to combat and see what happens here. This seems great. I mean, this seems like a pretty decent matchup for us. Our opponent relies on being the deck that has creatures in play, putting on the pressure, and disrupting your opponent with the spells we've seen, things like Spell Queller, and so on. But what they cannot do is really answer a turn 2 Goblin Rabblemaster or Legion Warboss, and you know they have a really difficult time when we get out that far ahead. Now, this one has to attack. I could send the rest of the team in to do damage. Well, this one has to swing in. Now, I guess I should, because if one's going to get blocked no matter what, then I may as well get in damage for it, right? I'm going to lose a token on this turn no matter what I do, any of the rest of these trade now. So I can swing for 5. I'm going to argue I'm supposed to swing with the Llanowar Elves there, but I actually don't want to lose it so that I can guarantee cast this Angrath Marauders next turn. Suppose we missed out on a food token this way. I think it'll be okay. I think we'll be alright. Just a hunch. Watch what if my opponent comes up with an answer and then I'm 1 food token short of casting Angrath's Marauders, the second one. That said, my opponent with 3 cards in hand and a couple spirits and played 3 life. Staring down this board, not where they want to be. I would love to hit just a land so that I can preserve one of these elves to attack. Not quite. That said, it'll be okay. It will all be okay. Angrath's Marauders. Now, I think they desperately need a Spell Queller. Well, Spell Queller doesn't work, does it? It's only 4 or less. My opponent says GG. That should do it. Game 1 down to Winota, on to the sideboard. Now, seems like I probably want these Bonecrusher Giants. Yeah, this seems pretty good too. Alright, sideboard. What to take out? Take out a Goose. We take out a Visionary, a Selfless Spirit. These cards don't... They're just kind of... They're just cards, right? Eldritch Evolution, though, we can definitely cut a few of those. Now, I have to say, this is now the second match in a row I've cut the Eldritch Evolutions in sideboarding because I don't want them to get counterspelled or what have you. But also notice, I think we've resolved 1 Eldritch Evolution, and it wasn't for Winota. And we've won some games. I mean, that's what I like about this deck. And stick your deck full of 7 Rabblmasters and 8, 10 Mana Dorks. You can just win matches of Magic without ever doing the broken thing. The Winota is just kind of icing on the cake here. I'm going to ship this hand. Basically mulligan anyways with this Marauders in it. And that's a sign of a good deck. This reminds me a lot of... Old Modern, and I'm a person who absolutely loves to play decks like this. I know that I'm known for Merfolk, and I've had a lot of tournament success with Merfolk, and blah blah blah, and that's all true. It's my favorite deck. I love it, but the truth of the matter is, this is my kind of deck. These Naya, you know, you want to be the one doing damage, but you're kind of playing to kind of a combo-esque finish. This is exactly up my alley. The first year I ever got really, really into serious competitive Magic, back in Worldwake days, Shards of Alara, I believe, I played in the time of Standard Jund, when I was playing Putrid Leeches and Sarkin the Mad and all this Broodmate Drag and all these old throwback cards. I was playing Fauna Shaman Vengevine Naya Charm, and I loved that deck because you could play fairly and just play your Vengemizer for an attack. You could just play all these cool value creatures the deck had. Like Stoneforge Mystic? I think I might add Stoneforge Mystic. That was a pretty good one. But then you also had just this combo way to play the game out with your Vengevines and your Fauna Shamans. I loved it. And that's kind of what this deck reminds me of. We've won a lot of games playing fairly. And by the way, you can also just win games with a Winota. And you have these Eldritch Evolutions. As you can see, we used them fairly in the last game. We went and got a value card. That's great. I love it. But you can also use them to get a combo card. That's really neat. Now, I have no idea where this deck fits in the metagame. I have no idea where things will go from here and Pioneer, blah, blah, blah. For all I know, this deck's unplayable. But I have to say, it is a pretty neat one, a pretty fun one. I love it. So, I don't know. I don't have a Pioneer deck in paper yet. Could this be it? A Hushbringer, you say? Pretty good one. Let's attack. I believe the only blocker my opponent could play that would matter is a Spell Queller, and I don't think they're going to be Spell Quelling this. Now, the question for us is what we want to play next. I can run a. I think it's got to be the Hushbringer. I fully expect this to get countered, but then I can play my Rabblemaster and just try to race with the Winota. That's the thinking here. The Hushbringer is a must counter for them and will tell us whether or not they have a Spell Queller, because if they do not and this resolves, while creatures in the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger, that's really bad for the Spirits deck. So we get to gain that information there, and now we get to play Rabblemaster and try to set up for a big Winota turn next turn. That's my thinking anyways. We'll see what happens. Sometimes you just misclick through anyway, so... Okay, that's fine. Let's see what they think about this. The old second main phase Rabblemaster. It's going to eat a Spell Queller anyways. Oh, Collected Company. Well, this is a reason not to... This allowed us to get... I expected this to get countered, so... Yeah, I mean, I kind of misclicked. I wanted to think about it a little longer, but I was considering attacking first regardless, because something like that, we would have lost our Elvish Visionary on top of having our spell countered. So, that said, that was a pretty good Collected Company for them. I think we might be a bit too far behind now. They're attacking for 10 damage. Yeah, we're just dead. On to game 3, I suppose. That was fast. They got there quickly in that one. That can do that. All right, so I really just got to keep the Haktos. So I have to keep everything that we can hit off of. I'm gonna cut the Selfless Spirit. I think it doesn't do a ton in this matchup. All right, give us a nice mana dork hand here. 6 lands. That'll work. That's what I like to see. Keep this one, please. Oh, I'm mulliganed. All right, what do I want to throw back? Probably a land. Probably the Mana Confluence. I think I can cast everything with just 2 lands here, as we have the Llanowar Elves. So, turn 2 Legion Warboss. Then we can even do something like sack a Voice of Resurgence into a Winota. Yeah, that would be pretty good. So let's see if that works out here. This is hopefully here, now that we're back on the play, we can get well and truly out ahead of our opponent. And Mausoleum Wanderer not really scaring me. I suppose it could count as Eldritch Evolution at some point, though. Haktos is the draw. Not a great one, but this is our game plan. Play Legion Warboss and let it go to work. It is, after all, the boss. All right. Not a bad turn 2, I would say. Now, these Llanowar Elves in this forest, I mean, this Haktos is just a dead draw on our hand. That's the price you pay sometimes. It's not going to do anything. But Voice of Resurgence should be very good. We also get it in underneath Spell Queller, which is absolutely huge. You don't want to lose my Legion Warboss. Will not be attacking with it. This one, by the way, It makes the token you create attack every turn. It does not make all your other goblins. So multiple Legion Warboss, a lot safer in play than multiple Goblin Rabble-masters. All right, let's see what the line here is. It is a Rattle Chain, so yeah, this is fine. The Rattle Chains will pump the Mausoleum Wanderer to be a 2/2. That means they get to eat one of the tokens, but they're still going to get in a point of damage. They're still going to lose a token no matter what this turn. And, you know, I suppose now, I mean, now we actually, I could Eldritch Evolution. Another Haktos, huh? I could Eldritch Evolution away the Llanowar Elves to get a 3. That doesn't do much for us. The Warboss to get a 4, like a Winota. Have multiple. No, that's all bad. I'm just gonna play. I'm just gonna play our Voice of Resurgence. So there are some interesting things here going on, because on our next turn, in a perfect world, we would untap. We would play Eldritch Evolution, sacrificing Voice of Resurgence, go get our Winota put into play, and hopefully win the game from there. But because of the stupid Mausoleum Wanderer in play, as it stands right now, our Eldritch Evolution can be countered. And unless they were to tap out in their main phase, I would still worry about it getting countered. But more importantly, if we did go that route and we chose to play the evolution and sack our Voice of Resurgence, that happens as part of the cost. It wouldn't be in play. So if our opponent had a counterspell, a spell queller, we wouldn't even get the voice trigger. So my opponent said, to heck with all that, though. Let's just play Empyrean Eagle and go to town. All right. That is certainly a strategy. Not even the worst. I mean, it's a 2/3. They're kind of relevant stats. Another voice for us. I do get this out of play by casting Eldritch Evolution, but let's move to combat. Yeah, and frankly, this isn't great, to be honest. That Empyrean Eagle is... Their draw might just line up in the right way against ours here. You know, that Mausoleum Wanderer is doing a pretty good job at holding us back. All right, here we go. Empyrean Eagle block, Rattle Chains block as expected, and we get through with the voice. I'm going to be honest, I think this is the only way I can win this game. Doesn't feel very good, but I think it's the only way to win. See if my opponent lets it resolve. Okay. Well then. Guess in that case I'll get a post-combat Winota. I'm going to be honest, I expected my opponent to sack the Mausoleum Wanderer to counter it. And my reasoning was, okay, well I get a 3/3 elemental out of the deal. That's bigger than the voice was. And my opponent's down a creature. It doesn't feel great, but given that our opponent played Empyrean Eagle and is going to win the race, that felt like the best use of my mana. Instead, they just let it resolve. And now we've got 3 creatures that will trigger Winota. I think they probably have lethal coming back at us, but I mean, we could give it a shot here. We'll play a voice. So whatever they're going to do, I say they need to do it now. I mean, basically all they have to do is not die, though, and I think they kill us. But let's move to combat and see what happens here. We do have a lot of triggers if we actually get to swing, and we do. So, all right. I don't know exactly what's going on, but I like where we're sitting right now. I did not expect that to work. Really, I don't know. We're going to put enough creatures into play here that my opponent is pretty much just going to die to this. And that might be what their attack was the we're dead attack. Why not? I really think that Mausoleum Wanderer countering our Eldritch Evolution would have given them a good shot here, but we'll see what happens with Winota. This is a legendary creature, right? It has to be, yeah. Okay, so that's a whiff. Next one. I just always yield to this. All right, there we go. I say we just want to get these Angrath Marauders into play because you get a couple of them into play. It's just always going to be lethal. All right, there you go. We're up to 8 times damage. Can we get to 16? All right, no 16 times damage, but this might be good enough unless our opponent fogs us. I'd have to give them that one. And they are paying costs. What's the card? It's a Settle the Wreckage. Well, can't beat that either. Huh. Yep. I would like to use the ability. I guess I could have held back, like, the actual Warboss? I don't know. My opponent doesn't have lethal, though. We did get a voice token out of it. I think they're going to get us. We do not have 14 points of damage. We're going to lose the race, but I don't know. Drawing double Haktos was worse. Their draw just lined up against ours. You know, if their draw had been, if that Empyrean Eagle basically had been a spell queller, if we'd been looking at something like we looked at last game, now we're just actually dead. We were never going to win this game. Their draw just lined up very well against ours. That's the way it goes. So, nice games. That was actually a fun deck from both sides. I do love Bant Spirits in this format. You know, I talk about how this Winota deck feels like a deck I would play. I mean, honestly, I have Bant Spirits, Collected Company decks. They're up there too. So, this was a good one. You know, our only out was that Winota, but they had to be sitting on Settle Wreckage the entire time, so they were never even concerned. So, that'll do it. That will do it. GG's. All right, on to the next one. All right, time to play some more Winota Evolution. I think this is a mulligan. We're on the draw. Does not, I mean, it goes Selfless Spirit into Rabblemaster Warboss. I mean, that is so tempting, but Haktos is not a good draw. The Evolution is medium here. Gosh, I don't know, though. I'm going to give it a shot. Because we're on the draw. I mean, it only basically gets better if we have a Llanowar Elves. And the thing is, this hand, you know, this hand might just be good, right? We don't know what our opponent's up to, but I'm envisioning the best case scenario from them. But hey, I mean, Selfless Spirit into Rabblemaster into Warboss is, I mean, that's quite the curve. So our opponent on, what is that, Zagantha Triome? Have I learned these right? Nope, Zagoth Triome. That's a Sultai one. Blue, green, black, and they've put an arrow into their graveyard. So, all right, good for them. Sultai, whatever you call it over there, just the generic Sultai deck, basically. It's just full of, just absolutely full of graveyard recursion and value and more value. It is the value town deck of the format, that's for sure. So let's see what they do here on turn 3. I love the Triomes. I really think they're cool. I don't know if they're good enough for constructed Magic outside of Standard. Like, I don't know if this Zagoth Triome is actually good to play in Pioneer, but I certainly love trying, and that's a Jace. This thing's going to transform next turn. And the beatdown from the Wayfinder, too. Okay, so, all right, though. All of that is what it is. Our opponent hasn't stopped us from doing anything. Traverse the Ulvenwald without Delirium. It means it just gets a land, but it means that Jace is going to transform next turn. So turn 3 transform Jace is well, turn 4, I guess. It's still pretty good. There's the Llanowar Elves for us. That said, I mean, this beatdown plan might just be good enough, right? We don't know what they're doing, but we know they're trying to do it fairly, and we have a Goblin Rabblemaster here. So we get to attack. We have a Selfless Spirit. We can basically just use it as a counter spell to the removal spell for Rabblemaster, right? Even if it doesn't protect from a Wrath per se, even if it just stops a Fatal Push from hitting our Rabblemaster, then Selfless Spirit's done its job. And especially considering that we're following up with a Warboss and a Llanowar Elves next turn, and are then set up to untap into Eldritch Evolution for Winota. That's pretty powerful. That's pretty powerful, I think. Also, we could get 3, depending on what my opponent does, we could Eldritch Evolution away the Selfless Spirit this turn to have 3 triggers on a Winota. So let's see what they choose to do with their Jace. Because the thing is, I don't really need, I don't know exactly what this deck has, but I do know that I will use Selfless Spirit to counter this Fatal Push, though. Now, even if they have another, not a big deal, frankly. So, I suspect this Jace will be plussing on my Rabblemaster. And they're just going to try to survive the fairway here. Is this an Uro? Alright. Just a cast Uro from hand. Not an escaped one. So, yes, they do get the value. And we have to make a decision, because I could actually play this Haktos if I wanted. It is kind of a conundrum, I won't lie. Next turn, my opponent can crack the Fabled Passage, Jace minus to get the Uro. I'm sorry, the Fatal Push back to kill our Rabblemaster if they want. And we draw that. Okay, so I can play Mystic Confluence, I can play Haktos. Or, wow, there's a lot of options here, aren't there? I could Eldritch Evolution the Warmaster into Winota, get 1 trigger. Is that worth? Could that be worth? The 1 trigger, roll the dice, see if there's an Angrath Marauders so we can... I guess we would deal 2 damage to the Jace. That can't be the line. That can't be the line. I think the line, since our opponent seems determined to play a fair game of Magic, the line is going to be to play the Legion Warboss and just attack. Just attack all. Since they let this trigger go on the sack, you would think that they don't have another Fatal Push in hand. But let's see the team at Jace here. Now, so this is actually really nice because this has to chump block the Rabblemaster, or the Rabblemaster will kill Jace. But when it does that, we still get through 3, which puts us down to 3. We can't stop it from minusing, but it would leave the battlefield, would go down to 0 loyalty and die if it was minus here. So that Warboss was just a huge play, honestly. We'll follow it up with this Llanowar Elves here. So now we get on tap with this board. Well, this is a board I will gladly Eldritch Evolution away the Warboss into a Winota and get our 4 or 5 triggers here. So they're going to need a board wipe of some sort, and I'm not positive what those decks look like these days. I mean, Cry of the Carnarium, Damnation, what is it? Do they play an actual board wipe? We'll see. It looks like they're just escaping Uro. That's not going to be good enough. Yeah, that's not going to get it done, friend. At least I don't think so, anyways. I mean, they do get a draw card. They get a land. It's a Fabled Passage, so Fatal Push is live. Jace plus, though. Now, my opponent, of course, doesn't know that I'm about to go searching for Winota. I mean, that's obviously a giant thing. I thought we had this down to 3. Did I miss something? Maybe I missed the damage. All right, that's fine. Untap, play Winota, and see what our opponent has to say about it, basically. I cannot play Hack. I don't have 7. I have 6, so not quite. We'll just have Evolution away the Warboss here. I think all we want to do is just play for the 1 Winota trigger, and if it wins the game, if it works, we're going to win the game. And if it doesn't, life goes on. We play an Elvish Mystic, and we're still in an okay spot, right? If we get to move to combat, though, this has got to be Fatal Push on Winota. Oh, okay. Swift in on Winota, sure. Alright, Whale. We only have 4 goblins to attack. Maybe keep this? I can swing with everything and get Jace off the battlefield, but I lose my Rabblemaster. I can swing like this to put Jace at 2, where it cannot... it can't minus. I think that's probably the line. Uro doesn't get any benefit on blocking, just attacking. So this will at least put Jace into a manageable position here. And now we'll add to the battlefield. I mean, the thing is, you know, maybe I could have played that game a little differently, right? I got a little greedy. I could have played Haktos and just been slower, right? And then played Winota the next turn. We might have gotten them to Murderous Rider the Haktos or something like that. Didn't quite work out that way. Now I'd say we actually need a little bit of help here. Jace isn't doing anything incredibly relevant yet, and frankly, neither are they, but they are just Buying time, filling the graveyard, Uro shenanigans. That's what this deck does. And now our Rabblemaster is actually somewhat ineffective. They have blockers, but they're going to go ahead and attack with Uro to get their trigger. But that does kind of open the door for us to swing as well. This is going to be a tough one. Drawing Winota would be good. Drawing a Plane's a little less good. See if we can get Jace off the battlefield, though. Well, this should get in 3. This should do it. The problem is I don't know if we can beat Uro. Alright, Jace TP down. Haktos, you're up. Maybe we'll just have protection from Uro and block it. This is a 6-1. This card is insane. Obviously not, though. Alright, so we have protection from converted mana costs other than 3, so we can't freely block the Uro. We can trade with the Uro or the Murderous Rider. That was, in fact, the worst number to roll on our Haktos, so I gotta say, I think that we are the ones behind here. And it's crazy. Our opponent did nothing unfair at all. We're trying to do unfair stuff. They just played a very, very fair game, and they have perhaps grinded us out. And this is going to run straight into the Murderous Rider. Oof. We are in quite a bit of trouble. Now, obviously, I think we flooded out kind of hard here, but honestly, I don't know if that. I don't know if that was the difference. Maybe if I play slightly differently, if we can bait out that Murderous Rider before the Winota. But I mean, honestly, I thought we were pretty safe there. I thought that that was going to work, and that was the turn. It felt like we had the opportunity to turn the corner and slam the door shut before they started doing this and really getting there with the Uro grind engine. Because I mean, frankly, now I think we're pretty much just dead. They're getting their Jace value. Yeah, that's good enough for me. On to the next one. All right, well, good match. Honestly, that was a really good one. Rest in peace, please. Hushbringer, please. Scavenging Ooze, please. Get in here, all of you. Maybe not rest in peace. Rest in peace is... I mean, actually, they have Jace. I'm just playing rest in peace here. It's just so good against them. All right, so what do we want to do here? Gonna try to just trim down a little bit. See if we can reasonably get there that way. Maybe try this? Feels like we still have a pretty fair deck. We still have the ability to do some unfair things, but we also just have cards that are just very good against them in a vacuum. Scavenging Ooze eats their graveyard. Hushbringer stops the Uro triggers. Rest in peace, exiles the graveyard. I mean, that everything they did in that game was revolved around the graveyard, whether it was Jace or Uro or Satyr Wayfinder. I mean, I think we just want all the graveyard hate here. Let's see if we can take it down. I'm in. I'm in. So it's going to be turn 1 Goose, turn 2 Confluence, turn 3 Winota attack, trigger with Hushbringer. That is certainly a plan. Now, we don't know what our opponent's going to do. I don't know if my plan is going to be good enough, but we do have a game plan. And this card is, I guess we'll see. I don't know that I've ever cast this card in my life. In fact, the only thing I know about this card is that when it came out, all anyone wanted to do was argue about the art. It was either the worst thing ever or the best thing ever. And as somebody who can appreciate the art, I can look at the art on a Magic card and say, oh, I think that's cool. But when I'm playing, they're just boxes of text. I don't ever really look at the art. And yet, with Hushbringer, that's all I know about it. It's I honestly don't know what's going on in the art. There are a bunch of lips surrounding a Hushbringer. It seems like the Hushbringer wants you to be quiet. It's bringing the hush. But it has a bunch of lips to do that. And the fact this mouth is open, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, I guess is what I'm saying. But that's okay. Let's play our Hushbringer out. Now the question is if I want to throw away my food to play this Elvish Mystic, and I think I do. Because next turn, I get to play Winota all the same. I was going to play Winota here no matter what. Except now, instead of getting... No! Oh my gosh, everything was going so perfectly. I was going to say, instead of getting one trigger off Winota, because I used the Goose for mana and then attacked with the Hushbringer, I get attacked with a Goose. Now Hushbringer's down, so... And just like that, this aggressively fair deck has taken the unfair things we were doing, and now it doesn't have to worry about them. And we can't cast this Haktos because of that play I made last turn. My gosh, I have to have green to make a food token. Okay, so I guess the Elvish Mystic gets in. I don't even think I played wrong. It just didn't work out. Our opponent had to have Thoughtseize, and they held that Thoughtseize until turn 3, and I guess turn 2. Most players don't do that. And most players fire it off on turn 1, which would have changed at least a little bit about the way I played the game. As it stands now, we do still have somewhat of a backup plan. Haktos, if you roll the right number, basically 4, right? If it has protection from everything but 4, well, it's just going to kill him in 3 hits. So this card is really, really silly, and we can cast it. We can play it next turn. Even if I forget to make it... Oh my gosh. I'm just going to stop saying what. I'm going to stop making plans. Our opponent says, no plans for you. You don't get to do anything you want to do, I guess. So, all right, fair enough. I'll make a food token. Can't stop me from doing that. There's an Eldritch Evolution. Doesn't do much. Won't lie. I'm going to just do this. That's fine. Trade off. I'll make food tokens. The plan here is to draw a 2-drop and then get a Winota out of the deal. It's a Jace. Alright, let's see if we find an answer. See if we can do something powerful here. Sunpetal Grove is not that. I can get a 3, but I just don't think there's any 3s. I think we're going to lose here, and I don't know that... things certainly didn't work out. I don't think we played particularly poorly or sideboarded particularly wrongly. Nor do I even think it's that lopsided of a matchup. It's just our opponent had those key Thoughtseizes. They don't have those key Thoughtseizes. It's a completely different game. As it is now, though, we're pretty much dead. Jace is going to flash back either the Fatal Push on our Goose or the Thoughtseize on our hand, and then we're trying to top deck against an opponent with 3 cards. And Uros at some point, actually. I say that. It's even worse than that. It's a flashbacked Traverse the Ulvenwald with Delirium to go get an Uro. So I guess we have this turn to draw our Graveyard Hate. If our opponent escapes or just plays an Uro, we can draw a piece of Graveyard Hate and exile it from their graveyard. Plenty of green mana, that's for sure. Yeah, it's kind of rough. I mean, look, we drew a side. Look at it this way. We drew a sideboard card on turn 2. If that sideboard card was Rest in Peace, I think we would have won the game. That sideboard card was Scavenging Ooze. I guess it would have got Fatal Pushed, but it had to have been the Hushbringer there. Rest in Peace wins the game. You know, the Scooze goes down the same as the Hushbringer, but the point is to say our opponent's answer is just lined up with our threats this game, and there will be games, if you're thinking about building this deck, where that won't happen, where they will have the Thoughtseize when you have the Hushbringer. They'll have the Fatal Push when you have the Winota and they can't trigger it. You know, those things happen. So while it certainly did not work out very well for us in this match, I wouldn't take that as, you know, too much of a sign of the matchup overall. Did they go get a Satyr Wayfinder with what did they go get with that? Did they not play it yet? Maybe they shouldn't. Oh, they haven't even cast it. Interesting. Okay. That's an Angrath Marauders. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is conveniently one short of where we want to be. Okay. Game's not over. I have no idea what our opponent's hand is, but I mean, maybe they should have a couple lands or something. It's going to be real hard to beat Jace, but not impossible, I guess. You know, I'm almost willing to concede this one, but I suppose as long as we can still just play Angrath Marauders and we're sitting with an Eldritch Evolution in hand, who knows? Maybe we can piece together some kind of Winota turn here. Either way, win or lose, we actually had some great games and some great matches with this deck. It's been a fun one, I think, for sure. All right, well, this is going to be painful, but go ahead and cast an Angrath Marauders, I suppose. It is certainly a must-answer threat, and it is, and it would be crazy for this to be a thing that stayed relevant if they don't have another Swift in, but if they only have Fatal Push, and we have this Angrath Marauders that is well out of range of it, but of course, as expected, they have the Swift in. This deck is just, it's just full of 2-for-1s, you know, and Swift in Murderous Rider, the 2/3 body is maybe not the best ever 2-for-1, but it's certainly relevant in a lot of matchups, including this one, and here comes Traverse for Uro. So Uro's going to get played. It cannot, at least I don't know if it can, I suppose. I guess if they haven't played a land, they could escape it this turn. If not, then we will get a turn to try to deal with it. So, all right, looks like they didn't have a land to put into play anyways. So, all right, look at that. Crisis averted. We have a turn to try to answer this Uro out of the graveyard. So I will be using this Eldritch Evolution this turn to go get a Scavenging Ooze. Alright, it's just an Elvish Mystic. So I guess the Mystic is better than the Goose, but maybe not. Maybe I'll play the Mystic and go throw it away instead. I think a Goose is actually better. Making food tokens is not irrelevant, as many people have learned since that card was printed. Not even a year ago. Alright. Well, let's do this here. Let's go get a... I think it's got to be Scavenging Ooze. And we will immediately use the Scavenging Ooze to eat the Uro. And it's just, I believe, just the one Uro in there. See here, this is their graveyard. Okay, well, there you go. Now we can untap, or rather we can pass the turn and eat something that our opponent can no longer flash anything back. Scavenging Ooze is our best bet to win the game. Obviously, that means our opponent has a Fatal Push for it, but we're doing what we can do. We are certainly trying. All right, Fatal Push down. Now maybe we'll draw Winota. Draw Winota, attack with Gilded Goose. Get something off it. It doesn't take much. It's this sort of thing where if your opponent has it and they stop you, well, you never do anything. It doesn't look very good. But if they don't, and you get even just one off, well, then it can be a blowout because that's just the way Winota works in this deck. Now, that said, maybe that's what I was supposed to hit. I hit the creature. My opponent gets to use the Jace to get back the Uro, but I think we're pretty much dead here no matter what we do. I don't think... I mean, this Uro may be the thing that goes and wins in the game, but the fact that all we have is a Gilded Goose is probably anything would get the job done at this point, unless we can hit something pretty incredible here. Fingers crossed. It is, however, an Inspiring Vantage. That should do it. We're not going to win the game with these cards. Alright, opponent gets to escape Uro. Once they do that, I think we basically are dead. I don't believe we have any outs at that point. I can't kill it. I guess I could play a Haktos, have protection from it for a turn. You can block it. Haktos has to attack every turn. But like I said, this looks like a blowout out. We just kind of destroyed, but we were so close. We had Winota. We had that... Scavenging Ooze, it almost took over the game. We had a couple opportunities, but our opponent just had all the answers, and that's basically what this Sultai deck does. It's the Jund of the format. It just always has the answers, and we have all the lands. All right, well, nice match, everybody. I wish we'd had a little better record this week. I honestly thought we were. This deck is good, though, but look, when I play these matches, one, we're doing it for fun, not to win or lose, but more than that, I actually don't care if I win or lose so long as we get to show what our deck does, and this game, our opponent doesn't have the exact answers they do. We win. Our deck looks incredible. Didn't quite work out, but you get to see what the deck's capable of, and you get to see how it lines up in the format, and you see how the other decks in Pioneer interact with it. And that's ultimately the goal of the video. So if you find any of these decks you like, you can pick them up. So everybody, thank you so much for watching. I'm Corbin Hosler. This was Punting Pioneer. I'll see you next week.